"Hey, old man over there, leave your beautiful wife behind and go." Out of the blue, it happened. 4 hefty thugs were lecherously looking down at my wife, almost salivating at her. In stark contrast, my youthful-looking and petite wife, who you wouldn't believe is over 40, was clearly attracting the attention of these young men. On the other hand, I, approaching my late 50s, have a look that's not quite fitting for my wife. Sometimes, I'm even mistaken for her dad, which paints a picture of a rather plain-looking guy. Here, it seems I'm recognized as her husband. It might be a tad inappropriate given the situation, but there's a part of me that's a bit relieved. Since her younger days, my wife often caught the attention of men, so such flirtatious approaches are probably nothing new to her. But witnessing her getting hit on right in front of me is something I've never experienced, leaving me momentarily lost in thought. Ignoring them probably wouldn't make them back off, and shouting would be undignified for a grown man. They told me to leave, but as I remained in place, one of the impatient young men reached out for my wife. At that moment, she pushed his hand away, asking, "Are you ready for this?" Almost in harmony, the thugs voiced a collective "huh," but the same words inadvertently came out of my mouth. Looking back, this incident became the catalyst for me regaining control over my life. My name is Bob. I'm turning 57 this year. At 6'3", I'm considered tall for my age group. I still have decent muscles and, while not exactly agile, I believe I have a good amount of dexterity. Thus, even if I get hassled by something, I'm not easily intimidated. The reason I still maintain a muscular physique at this age probably stems from my time in the military. When I was younger, I served in the military, it seems. At one point, I was deployed to a country long torn by civil war. There, under the orders of rebel forces, civilians engaged in gunfights, with even children exposed to danger daily. While the locals might have had reservations about trusting a foreigner like me, I did what I could, genuinely wanting to protect them, apparently. The repeated apparently and the uncertain details stem from a reason. I lost my memory and my right arm there. I found myself waking up in a hospital bed when I started remembering things. Seeing myself covered in bandages was more painful than the actual physical pain. But beyond the pain, not remembering who I was even harder. Name, I couldn't recall. Words, I hadn't forgotten. I could understand. I knew the names of things I saw, and I understood the basics needed to live. But that was it. Who am I? Where am I from? Every trace of my identity had been wiped clean. How am I supposed to live now? Amidst the despair, my sole beacon of hope was my wife, Catherine. Throughout my hospitalization, she visited me daily, never missing a day. At that time, I wasn't married, and honestly, I didn't even know who she was, but she was always by my side. Even if you forget about me, it would be great if we could make a lot of memories from now on. That's what she told me. When I was discharged from the hospital, we got married and she took on my last name. Having lost part of my body and my memory not coming back, I naturally had no place in the military and had to be discharged. I was then given a large amount of compensation. It was enough money that if I was frugal, I could live without working for the rest of my life, but I didn't want to just do nothing. So, I started job hunting. There were limited jobs I could do since I lost my dominant arm and my memory, and I was rejected in several interviews. Eventually, a small cleaning company hired me. I was assigned to places where I could work even with one arm missing, like cleaning offices or schools. I couldn't remember my past, but my life was fulfilling. Above all, when I got home, my beloved wife, Catherine, was there. I decided that this is my life now and found happiness in spending the rest of my life with Catherine. At her suggestion, I retired at 55. Fortunately, we had enough savings to live comfortably in retirement, and Catherine also worked. I had planned to keep working as long as I could, but I decided to retire because I didn't want to worry Catherine. However, I didn't really have any hobbies, so once I retired, I had a lot of free time. If I had to pick something close to a hobby, it would be my daily walks. I started going for walks almost every day. It was a beautiful Monday morning. That day, as usual, I prepared Catherine's breakfast and saw her off. After doing the laundry and some light cleaning, I left the house around 9 a.m. I guess you could call me a stay-at-home husband since I mainly take care of the housework. It was a routine to stop by the grocery store on my way back from my morning walk to buy dinner. On my walking route, there's a large housing complex, and in front of it is a large park with no play equipment. My favorite spot was a bench in the corner, where I'd always took a break. The European-style design of the park, contrasting with the open space of a typical American park, somehow made it feel cozy. Sitting on the bench, I pulled out a paperback from my eco-friendly bag and began reading a mystery novel I had been in the middle of. Nice weather, isn't it? Around the same age, or maybe a bit older, I guess. The man approached with a gentle smile and said such a greeting. Yes, it's a nice day. I'm not particularly bad at socializing, but being a bit of an introvert, I often feel awkward talking to someone I've just met. I awkwardly repeated his greeting, but the man showed no sign of annoyance and pointed at the bench. Mind if I sit here? Oh, right. This is a two-seater bench, but I was sitting right in the middle with my bag next to me, leaving no room for anyone else. I'm sorry, my bad. I quickly moved to the edge of the bench and placed my eco-friendly bag on my lap. No worries. I just wanted to chat with you for a bit, he said as he sat down next to me. Chat with me, that's a first. Catherine enjoys my boring stories, but I can't remember anyone else ever enjoying a conversation with me, especially an older guy like me. Noticing my puzzled look, the man shook his head and tried to clear things up. Sorry for the sudden approach, my name's Jason. Jason. Why do you? Before I could finish, Jason cut me off with a soft smile. You come to this park every day, right? I do too. I think it's great how there's no play equipment here, don't you agree? I suppose it's more of a plaza than a park since there's no play equipment, but it's named Johnson Park, so I guess it's still a park. I'm not one to beat around the bush. Would you be interested in trying out some supplements? Supplements? I wonder if this man also sells health foods. Did he just happen to decide to pitch to a middle-aged man who seemed to enjoy sports? This is a sample, so I'm giving it to you for free. Please try it if you'd like. Despite his calm tone, Jason forcefully placed the pill in my hand. Well, it's probably fine to take it if it's a free sample. I could always just toss it without taking it. At first glance, it just looks like any regular medication. Please do take it. I'll be here again, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. As I'm dumbfoundedly watching Jason leave brusquely from the bench, he suddenly looks back. See you again, Bob. At the same time he called my name, I grimaced from a sudden headache. And I couldn't get Jason's gentle face out of my mind. Wait, did I tell him my name? That night, when I told the story to Catherine, she told me to throw away the supplement. You should change your walking route too. Seems like a dangerous person. Best to avoid him. Catherine has a point. After all, only someone with a serious lack of judgment would take pills from anyone other than a pharmacy or doctor. Of course, I don't intend to take it, but I'd feel bad faking it next time I meet him. I'm not good at lying. I'd probably give myself away. You don't have to meet him. He doesn't know where you live, right? I wonder, he did seem to know my name. If he knows my walking route and my last name, he could potentially find where I live. If you run into him by any chance, call the cops. He's definitely a bad guy. I have a bad feeling. Though Catherine isn't a fortune teller and doesn't have any psychic vibes, her hunches often turn out to be right. I know that even though it is only a hunch, in her case, it should never be taken lightly. I took her advice and changed my walking route the next day. I even chose streets I had never walked on before, passing buildings I'd never seen. The novelty of these unfamiliar sights made me realize I had grown bored of my usual walks. Even though I've been living in this town for over 10 years, there's so much I don't know. Watching the stream of cars from an overpass, I felt a sudden push from behind. I desperately grabbed onto the railing with my left arm as I almost fell over. When I looked around, there was no sign of the person who tried to push me. Crossing the railings and stepping onto the pedestrian overpass, I immediately sat down on the spot. Having narrowly escaped death, I remained seated there until the trembling in my legs subsided. I was certain someone was after me a few days after that near fall from the overpass. Flower pots falling from above, being pushed while waiting at the lights. I managed to dodge these threats, but what I couldn't forgive was someone trying to set my house on fire. Luckily, I noticed right away and it was just a minor fire, but now there's a chance my wife is in danger too, so I reluctantly called the police. Of course, they can't provide 24/7 protection, but they said they'd increase patrols and be ready to respond if anything happens. Having some surveillance is somewhat reassuring. Honestly, I'll be fine as long as Catherine is safe. That's all I care about. And then, for about a week, things were peaceful. Maybe they got scared off seeing the police around our place. That's fine by me. As long as they stay away, it doesn't matter if they are caught or not. There's been no contact from Jason, and no incidents either. Catherine seemed relieved too, and we resumed our normal lives. Then, out of the blue, "How about we take a vacation? I could get some extended time off," she suggested an overseas trip. Catherine's desired destination was Spain. We had discussed going there for our honeymoon, but given the uncertainty at the time, we decided against depleting our savings. Instead, we opted for a trip to Savannah, Georgia. During that trip, Catherine fell in love with Savannah and has visited there several times since. I assumed this time would be another trip to Savannah, but was surprised it was abroad. "It's fine, let's go. We couldn't go abroad on our honeymoon. In fact, it's been almost 10 years since our last trip," I remarked. We both had jobs and rarely got time off together, so it had been quite some time since our last real vacation. Watching Catherine excitedly planning to buy new outfits and bags for the trip made me smile, and I too began to look forward to the trip. Traveling abroad, huh? I glanced at my right arm, which was missing from the elbow down. Where had I been deployed? Catherine never liked discussing that period, so I never pressed for details. As such, I don't know where it was or what the conditions were like. There had been ongoing conflict, but I doubted it was Spain. Boarding a plane might bring back memories. Feeling a phantom pain in my missing arm, I brushed aside my negative thoughts. I began searching online for tourist spots in Spain and listing places I wanted to visit. The following month, we proceeded with our travel plans as scheduled. Arriving at the airport 2 hours before our flight, we decided to relax in the lobby. A week-long stay. Though it wasn't my first time abroad, I'd lost my memories of it. It felt like the first time. I hoped I wouldn't feel homesick. Apparently, the flight to Spain would be quite long. Not being great at sitting still for long periods, the thought made me dizzy. "I'll get us something to drink," I told Catherine, and as we walked, she expressed a desire to explore the airport. Even in her 40s, she hadn't lost her childlike enthusiasm. Chuckling, I walked beside her as she cheerfully linked arms with me. "Hey, old man, why don't you leave that beautiful lady and go home?" a voice suddenly interrupted. A group of men stood directly in front of us. Startled, I stepped back. pulling Catherine with me. She stumbled and fell backward. I quickly knelt beside her, supporting her back, and looked up at the men, asking, "What do you want? Didn't you hear? Guess old folks have trouble hearing." One jeered, laughing loudly. What was so funny? "We'll take care of her now. You can go, old man." With a shooing gesture, as if driving away an animal, one of the men reaches out to Catherine. However, Catherine forcefully pushes his hand away. Staring the men down with an uncharacteristically sharp tone, she says, "Are you ready for what's coming? Huh?" Not just the men, but even I was taken aback. Could Catherine have martial arts training I didn't know about? We'd been together a long time, but I'd never heard of such a thing. But then again, maybe she had learned some when she was younger. Could it really be that a showdown is about to unfold right here? No way, she wouldn't ruin the upcoming vacation. She was so looking forward to it after all. Besides, I can't even imagine her getting into a physical fight. Does that mean it's up to me to step in? Stunned, I stare at Catherine's face, and she stares right back. Her expression seemed a mix of emotions, hard to describe. Our eyes locked for a few seconds, but suddenly, Catherine looks away, biting her lower lip. I can't completely understand the feelings of Catherine, and for some reason, the men don't seem to take any action either. The situation is in a stalemate, with everyone in the vicinity feeling awkward. "Sorry, I apologize, but why are you apologizing?" Confused, I tried to ask Catherine for clarification, but the men seemed to have run out of patience. "Hey, don't ignore us like that." A man roughly grabbed my jacket collar and forced me to stand. His strength, coming from what appeared to be a nearly 6'5" tall frame, was just as imposing as he looked. One solid hit from those massive arms could knock anyone out. "Come at me, man." Surprisingly, he let go of my collar and wanted a fair fight. What is he thinking? I can't even understand Catherine's intentions. I'm paralyzed with confusion, and honestly, I don't feel like engaging. I can't imagine coming out of a fight with such a huge guy unscathed. Being close to 60, I know better than anyone how vulnerable my body is to impacts. Seeing my distress, the man did not hesitate and raised his fist. Anticipating the damage to my left cheek, I cringe, but suddenly, everything around me moves in slow motion. His right hand is slowly coming at me. Seeing his attack, my body reacts on its own accord. My left hand lands a counterpunch, almost like it's being drawn in, right into his left chest. The next moment, he was lying in front of me, eyes rolled back. My heart is pounding. I tried to calm myself, but strangely, my mind was incredibly calm. It felt as if I wasn't myself, as if someone else had taken control of my body, making everything seem so distant. "Ah!" A woman's scream echoed from somewhere. She must have seen me knock the man down. Only then was I able to move again. I called out to the man, foaming at the mouth, completely still. But there was no response, no breathing. I tried to feel for a pulse on his wrist and chest, but nothing. I turned white. "Hey, come on, breathe." My attempts at CPR, done as best as I remembered, were to no avail. The man didn't budge. With the other men just standing there in shock, not knowing what to do, I continued desperately trying to revive him. "Please, please breathe." "Excuse me, Jason," the guy who had given me some supplements at the park the other day, pushed me aside as tears welled up in my eyes. He pulled out a machine from his bag. Maybe it's an AED or something. He placed it on the man's chest, hit a button, and the man's body jolted. A few seconds later, the man, drooling, came back to life. He spat out saliva, and as if realizing what had happened to him, the man shivered. The men exchanged glances with Jason and left with a nod. Seems like they knew Jason. Still confused and shaken up, Jason smiled at me. "Let's have a talk, somewhere we can sit down and relax." I canceled the trip. Neither Catherine nor I felt in the mood for a vacation anymore. I later explained the whole situation to the security officers who had arrived. Objectively speaking, I was the aggressor, so it'd be their duty to hand me over to the police, but the man I had hurt didn't press any charges. With Jason testifying on my behalf, confirming it was self-defense, I was let go without any legal complications. While we could have barely made our flight, neither Catherine nor I felt like we could enjoy the trip, so we decided to cancel. Taking Jason, who wanted to chat somewhere peaceful, we headed home. I had planned to meet him at a local cafe, but surprisingly, it was Catherine who suggested we talk at home. It was supposed to be the first time Catherine and Jason met. Given that Catherine seemed to detest Jason for giving me some sketchy pills, I wondered why she'd invite such a man into our home. After all, he had stood up for me during that airport kerfuffle, so maybe this was her way of returning the favor. Once we got to the house, we got straight to the point without any small talk. "So, where should we start?" Sipping the coffee Catherine had made, Jason shrugged with palms facing up. "To be honest, I haven't a clue what's happening to me right now. If it's no trouble, could you first tell me who you are?" Jason nodded slowly with his eyes closed. "Of course. My profession is a doctor. I've retired from active practice. And as for our connection, Bob, you were once my patient." "Patient?" "Oh, when I was still in the military. I had a severe injury and was out of it for a long time, so I don't remember who my doctor was." Looking down at where my right arm used to be, I begin to say, "About that time, in gratitude," but Jason stops me. "No need to thank me. I don't deserve it." "What do you mean?" Taking a deep breath, Jason slowly exhaled while looking up at the ceiling. "What has Catherine told you about your past?" "How so?" "My past. My past. My past that I can't even remember." I told Jason everything I remembered. That I used to be a soldier, how I lost my right arm in the line of duty, and how I had no memories of that time. Throughout my explanation, Jason listened intently, a mix of sympathy and pity in his eyes. When I finished, he simply said, "I see." Turning to Catherine, he asked, "Should I tell him the truth?" Catherine remained silent. Taking her silence as consent, Jason began to reveal the truth to me, urging me to stay calm throughout. "Bob, first off, you weren't a regular soldier. You were part of a special ops team." "Wait, hold on. So you're saying I wasn't in the military, but in this special ops team? Then has Catherine been lying to me?" Honestly, the details about my past, whether I was a soldier or part of some elite squad, didn't matter to me. But finding out Catherine might have lied was a shock. Catherine's silence seemed to confirm Jason's words. "Please, calm down. I'm sure Catherine had her reasons for not telling you the whole truth. She wouldn't lie out of malice, right?" Catherine remained silent, her face unreadable. "While you might not immediately understand or accept this, let me continue. You were part of a team sent on a mission to quell a civil war in a certain country. As for who exactly commissioned this mission, only the top brass knew, so even I don't know the specifics. Anyway, you went to that country, and thanks to your efforts, the war ended." I was probably being praised, but the shock of Catherine's possible deception had me feeling like I was listening to someone else's heroic tale. I tried to stay engaged, but what Jason said next left me stunned. "You were extraordinary. After all, you alone took the lives of 96 people." I must have looked ridiculous with my mouth hanging open. Perhaps Catherine was crying at seeing my reaction, but I couldn't tell. Of course, given the circumstances, you can't be compared to some random criminals. It's probably more accurate to say that past you. In any case, you neutralized enemy forces with overwhelming power, but at the same time, questions arose. Questions. Yes. Is there value in peace that comes at the cost of other people's lives? taking other people's life. Yes, I had been prepared for the possibility, especially since I believed I had lost my arm in combat. But 96 people. That number was too high, and I couldn't hide my shock. Bob, it's all in the past. You don't need to feel guilty about it now, but the main point is yet to come. I couldn't imagine anything more shocking. My breathing became erratic, and my vision blurred. My brain, unable to accept reality, seems to be trying to escape by blacking out. Bang! With a loud noise, I slapped both of my cheeks. Tell me, please continue. I'll never run away. I'll face my past. Someone from the top of the organization has ordered that you, who are injured and recuperating, be taken out. Why target my life? A soldier must not have individuality. That should be the same for any unit. If each starts questioning their actions, the chain of command won't function, and the entire unit could fall apart. I'll skip the details due to the length. Firstly, the reason you got injured was that, in battle, you showed such an overwhelming presence that the remaining enemies couldn't tolerate. From a momentary lapse in judgment, you were ambushed by multiple enemy soldiers and lost your right arm. I felt a pulse in my upper arm. The local hospital was ill-equipped, and the treatment given was only temporary. Had you been just an incompetent grunt, you'd probably have been left to die, but the organization wouldn't abandon you, their hero. Unconscious, you were immediately transported to the US. That's when I met Jason. I underwent a surgery, and although my severed right arm wasn't restored, I managed to survive, it seems. Had I already lost my memory by that time? It's a natural assumption. Due to severe physical injury, my brain must have received a significant shock and caused memory loss. Makes sense. No, you still had your memories, because the one who stole them was none other than me. Jason, why? Jason, rubbing his forehead, and with hesitation, said, I had no choice. You seem to have hinted to close friends about leaving the unit, and a man who heard of this reported it to the higher-ups. I don't know the details of how the decision was made to deal with you, but they probably considered you a potential risk. Just for hinting about leaving the unit. Given it was a secret unit, they probably had various secrets, and there might have been concerns about a leak. But there was someone who opposed your removal. He was your superior. Citing your achievements and character, he begged for your life. Of course, he was turned down, but he persisted. In the end, at the cost of his own life, he saved yours. So, you're saying he died in my place? Jason looked genuinely regretful and nodded deeply. That man was. Jason's gaze shifted to Catherine. Catherine's father. Without thinking, I stood up from my chair. A mug fell over, spilling coffee, but no one seemed to care. Catherine. It was mind-blowing. The thought that my beloved wife's father died because of me. Given his sacrifice, you were saved, but it wasn't as simple as letting you go free. They asked me to erase your memory, but erasing memories isn't as easy as it sounds. After trying various methods, I finally got a drug that could induce amnesia. It's obviously illegal, though. So I was made to drink that and lost my memories. Physically, you recovered well. Regarding memories, it might sound insensitive to say smoothly, but we managed to erase them without issues, and once you were fit to be discharged, you were united with Catherine, the daughter of your former boss, and led a happy life. Jason, ending the story with a deep emotion, stared intently into my eyes. Now, why did I appear before you now? It's to observe your condition. So, you came to check if my memories are indeed gone. Jason clapped his hands and nodded exaggeratedly. You are quick to grasp, exactly. But isn't that contradictory? If your job is to ensure my memory is gone, why tell me all about the past? Jason grinned mischievously and said, You really catch on fast. It's simple. The organization you belong to wants your memories permanently gone. So, all you need to do here is drink the amnesia drug again. But if I suddenly told you to drink this, you'd find it suspicious, wouldn't you? Like when you discarded the supplements I gave you earlier. That's why I decided to be transparent and have you drink it willingly. After all, it'll be erased from your memory anyway. Why not spill the beans about the organization here? So, Bob, if you take this, everything will be resolved. With a wink, Jason presented a single pill in his palm. This is the memory-erasing drug. Yes, it's a safer version than the one you took before. Go on, take it. Jason forcefully placed the pill in my hand. He sighed, saying, "Phew," and drained his cup of coffee. After all the talking, his throat must be parched. This lifts a weight off my shoulders. If I take this, I'll forget about Catherine. What's more, I might even forget who I am. Plagued by this fear, I stared blankly at the pill in my palm. You want to spend a peaceful retirement with your wife, don't you? A smart man like you understands what I'm getting at, right? Do I have no other choice? After all, it's rather audacious for someone like me, who's taken so many lives, to now wish for my own happiness. Moreover, if taking this pill ensures no harm comes to Catherine, then losing my memories seems a small price to pay. But I'm sorry, I can't take it. Come on, Bob. After coming this far, don't get cold feet. Living your life constantly under surveillance. I don't want to lose Catherine, not even my memories. Catherine has always stood by me selflessly. Even if she lied, it's not a big deal. I believe she did it for my sake. Besides, I'm certain she isn't the kind to use people for her own benefit. Above all, she's not the kind of woman who would condone being saved at the expense of someone else's sacrifice. That's why I trust her. I'll even forgive her lies. I don't know what this organization plans for us, but I'll protect her with all I've got. Even at my age, with a body that hardly moves. Moreover, I'm missing an arm. There's little I can do. Honestly, I'm not confident I can protect Catherine to the end. But I can dedicate the rest of my life to her. To spend my life with her till the end. Oh, choke. Suddenly, Jason began to vomit. While I was shocked, Catherine remained calm. Is this? Finally, I've fulfilled my promise. As Jason glared at Catherine, she returned his gaze coldly. How does your own medicine taste? Where did you get this? You don't need to know. You'd forget even if I told you. Cursing, Jason writhed in pain for about 10 minutes before passing out. After a while, Catherine, who had been looking down at Jason, turned to me, shedding a tear. It's over, finally. I'll tell you everything. He just wanted to test his drug. An hour later, Jason woke up. Not remembering who he was, I took him to a local police station, saying, I found this elderly man wandering around, and left the rest to the police. Considering the drug's effects, I doubt he'll have a peaceful retirement. When I got home, Catherine, who had cleaned up Jason's mess, was waiting. Most of what Jason said was true, but some things were different. She had apparently learned about my situation from her father. The organization initially wanted to use me in a support role after I got injured and was no longer fit to be a soldier. However, Jason opposed that. He was eager to test his drug on me, suggesting to erase my memory and then expel me from the organization. Jason, it seems, had relatives in the higher-ups of the organization, and due to their influence, his opinion was accepted. So, I became a guinea pig to prove the effects of his drug. Just before taking the drug, I cleverly crushed it in my hand and ingested only half a pill. Realizing this, Catherine approached me, drooling and feeble, and took the half pill from my clenched hand. As my consciousness became cloudy, I stared at Catherine. She told me that she swore vengeance upon Jason through her determined eyes. It turns out Catherine's father had also died because of Jason's malicious advice. Catherine's father, who had opposed making me take the unknown drug till the end, was literally axed under the pretense of taking responsibility for his subordinates. Between her father and me, Catherine held a deep-seated resentment towards Jason. But then we got married and lived peacefully. While Catherine considered forgetting everything and living quietly together, deep down she wished I wouldn't lose my fighting spirit or thirst for vengeance. She wanted us to confront and take down our enemy together. But her internal struggle of not wanting to taint my hands any further has tormented her for a long time. Then, the opportunity came. Having been on the lookout, Catherine managed to invite Jason to our home and accomplished her goal. I'm sorry for lying. You must be disappointed, but I just couldn't forgive him, especially Jason. I'd understand if you'd want a divorce, Catherine said with a forced smile. Listening to her shaky voice, anyone could tell she was putting on a brave face, not just me. I told Jason too. I don't blame you for lying, Catherine, and I would have wanted to avenge your father, who defended me to the end, although I sadly don't remember it. I can't recall the emotions of that time, or her father. Still, I must have found it absolutely unforgivable. She's not a part of the organization, so she doesn't know the details, and apparently, her father only told her about how I was treated. I may have lost my right arm and my past memories, but now I have my left arm and you. That's more than enough for me. With my only arm, I hugged Catherine tightly. Feeling her slender, fragile body sobbing in my embrace made her seem so vulnerable. Jason's situation became a minor news story. Although his real name wasn't disclosed, Jason was seen wandering around in an obvious state of confusion, and it garnered some public interest. For some reason, the media tracked down my address as the person who found him, but I declined all interviews and maintained my silence. It's only natural for me, the person involved, not to comment, but it makes me wonder why, after taking the same half pill, I only lost my memory while Jason lost his entire sense of self. But it's pointless to ponder it now. Catherine and I have continued a healthy marital relationship. We even went on our long-anticipated trip to Spain, enjoying our first ever overseas journey as a couple. Catherine mentioned excitedly that she wanted to visit every country in Europe. Even if we visited one country a year, we'd have to live past 100, but living a long life just to see her smile seems worth it. Hey, what's the big idea barging in like that? Just because you're a foreigner doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. The scene is at a pub where I work part-time. A large foreigner is yelling loudly. The buzzed customers around him are getting agitated. Caught in the middle is a nearly teary-eyed college girl, Lily. At this rate, it seems like someone might start a fight. For a moment, I hesitated to intervene. If I did, they might find out the secret I've been hiding since I started working here. Everyone might be heartbroken when they find out about my hidden past. But seeing the distressed Lily made all my fears seem insignificant. I wanted to help her. With that determination, I stepped out of the kitchen and stood in front of the irate foreigner. And then, my name is Max. Ever since I was young, I've struggled with social interactions. It didn't matter the gender or age, I simply found it hard to converse with others. I remember feeling this way since kindergarten. Back then, what interested me the most were books. I started with picture books and gradually became interested in novels. Of course, many of the words were too advanced for me at the time, and I probably didn't grasp more than half of the content. Nevertheless, I thoroughly enjoyed trying to understand the settings and the emotions of the characters. That process was my greatest joy. However, understandably, my peers weren't interested in that at all. When I tried to talk about it, they'd say, "I have no clue what Max is talking about." Conversely, I couldn't relate to the cartoons or comics they discussed. Ever since then, I've lived a life avoiding much interaction with others. But you can't go through life all alone. My laid-back mom, noticing that I, now in college, still spent most of my time alone, told me, "You should really get out more and make at least one friend. If that's too much, at least get a job and see more of the world." Of course, I understood what my mom said, but I really didn't want to interact with people. I was even looking for a job where I could work independently. You can't go through life all alone, you know. Actually, if you took up a part-time job or something, you might find some folks you really click with. Even my dad sided with my mom. Reluctantly, I realized they were both teaming up to tell me this. Given the circumstances, right after graduation, I started looking for a part-time job. Around that time, the only senior at college who would talk to me referred me to a pub. When I explained the situation, he said, "If that's the case, want to try working here?" So, I ended up working at the pub he recommended. That pub isn't part of a chain or anything. It's run by my senior, who's the manager. According to senior, it's an old establishment handed down from his grandfather, and the menu shows its age. It's worn and torn in places. I really like the unique taste it has. The manager, either seriously saying this or just not wanting to change things, would set things up with a laugh that made you unsure of his true intention. The seating arrangement included a few counters and tables, and the establishment only had 2 small booth areas. Moreover, the manager was seldom at the restaurant. As he had other tasks to attend to, he usually left the place to his assistant manager, named John. That guy really works me to the bone. He always makes me do the complex dishes, so my cooking skills just keep improving. Yet, my pay doesn't reflect it, John said with a chuckle, quickly preparing dishes. As John himself would say, he was truly skilled in cooking. Not only was he efficient, but his seasoning was spot on. Especially his omelet. It was so fluffy and wobbly, it felt like you could actually hear it jiggling. The regulars who visited the pub would almost certainly order the omelet made by John. There was another employee in the pub. The only female staff member was Lily, who worked part-time. Being a college student, she worked 3 times a week. Unlike me, she spoke brightly with everyone and had a dazzling smile. Regulars often commented, "You know, the reason I keep coming back here is because of Lily." Although I was grateful for the job, I wasn't good at customer service. Dealing with tipsy customers was particularly tough, and since I often couldn't communicate well with others, I was mainly relegated to the kitchen. The kitchen was John's territory. Despite him being faster on his own, he seemed to purposely delegate tasks to me. Thanks to that, my cooking skills improved rapidly. I've always had a passion for cooking. It's something I can quietly focus on by myself, without needing conversation. Never did I think this trait of mine would be so useful here. Contrary to my expectations, this place gets quite a crowd. When I was first introduced to this gig and saw the somewhat old-fashioned establishment, I assumed not many folks would frequent it. Boy, was I wrong. This joint has an assortment of alcohols, from popular domestic brews to rare local spirits, even international liquors, all thanks to the manager's fondness for booze. I still wonder where he sources them from. The location is prime too. It's conveniently located near major highways and exits, with plenty of traffic passing by. A short stroll away, there's a residential area. We get all kinds of customers, from long-time regulars to college students fresh out of their club activities. The 3 of us mainly ran this always busy place. To think that it was managed by just 2 people before I came aboard is mind-boggling. Lily, though occasionally messing up orders, has many fans among the customers. "It's all right, kiddo, I lead it," the old man often says, stepping in to help out. John often grumbles, "Darn, where's the manager goofing off now? Think I should deep fry him or something." But he's always cooking with a grin on his face. "John, this omelet is just out of this world." Lily's voice echoes from the dining area. To which he'd reply, "All right, I'll whip up another one for free, on the house." Sure, it was a busy gig, but I look forward to every shift. Half a year flew by since I started. Every day was hectic, but it felt hundreds of times more fulfilling than before. I was getting more adept in the kitchen, and could even anticipate what John needed without him asking. At times, I'd also help Lily out. Helping, in this context, meant delivering dishes to the tables closest to the kitchen. After closing up, the four of us would occasionally have drinks. The manager would bring out some fancy drink he wanted to try, offering everyone a glass. John, on the other hand, would quickly prepare some delicious snacks that paired perfectly with the drink. And it's always typical for Lily to grumble while she drinks. Lily is in the literature department, majoring in classical literature. She wants to be a librarian in the future. Her words excited me. Indeed, living surrounded by books sounds wonderful. For me, such days would be a luxury. Sadly, being in a science department, I can't get a librarian's certification. When she gets tipsy, she starts talking non-stop about infamous stories of famous authors. You know, I love Fitzgerald. Oh, I mean F. Scott Fitzgerald. But just for his looks. John sighed. How many times have I heard that? Fitzgerald was a jerk, right? John probably had heard these complaints way before I started working here. Not just him. Fitzgerald stalked Hemingway, and Hemingway had stalked Fitzgerald. So, what you're saying is, all we got from classic literature are stalkers. Aren't there any decent guys? The manager urged Lily to improve the image of classical literature. Well, Poe was always in debt, and Bukowski was known to love his alcohol, to a fault. Lily, in her drunken state, couldn't help but lower the reputation of these literary figures. Even these famous guys were this bad, right? Men are just the worst in the world. What a radical statement. Though I thought so, both the manager and John were like, yeah, all men are trash, trying to comfort her. It wasn't the first or second time Lily made such remarks. Whenever we had a drink after work, she would always bring up these authors as examples to stress how terrible men are. I have a feeling she might have had a bad experience with a guy in her past. But neither John nor the manager asked her for details, nor did they explain anything to me. I was curious, but I couldn't ask Lily directly. I was also surprised that I became interested in Lily's past. Before I knew it, I became intrigued by a coworker, which was quite unexpected for someone like me who generally isn't interested in others. In these 6 months, I silently applauded the growth in my feelings. During my part-time job period, there was something else I noticed. The manager seemed to be quite fond of Lily. I mean, he seemed to really like her, if you catch my drift. He was quite the caretaker, or perhaps just very attentive. Well, they are both of the right age, so there's nothing wrong with that. There shouldn't be an issue, but I can't help but watch their interactions. That's how my days went by. One day, as usual, manager wasn't around, so the three of us were serving the customers. It was a typically busy day when something out of the ordinary happened. We had a foreign customer. Judging by looks might not be fair, but that customers probably were German. They were around 6 feet 3 inches tall and extremely muscular. If they were to punch a guy like me, I reckon just one hit would shatter all my bones. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 of them. They were 6. I hadn't anticipated such big folks coming into such a tight space in the pub. Lily, taken aback, led them to the seating area. It got a bit crammed because of the other customers, but it couldn't be helped. The foreign customers seemed to understand the place was busy, so they didn't complain and just ordered. Their English was broken, but Lily managed to take the orders and safely return to the kitchen. Phew, I made sure to take that order very carefully. John joked, if you messed up, you'd probably get a whooping. At that comment, Lily double-checked the order slip and muttered, maybe I should ask again. Luckily, all the ordered dishes were served, and the foreign customers left looking satisfied. After that, customers kept pouring in without a break. Cooking non-stop, I took a moment to look at the clock and realized it was almost closing time. I was pretty worn out. Peeking into the dining area, there were still some customers, but most seemed ready to leave or had finished their meals. Just as we were about to start cleaning up the kitchen. What? Lily's voice echoed into the kitchen. Rushing back into the restaurant with great speed was the foreigner who had dined earlier. Whether he was drunk or had simply rushed back, his face was flushed and easily visible even from the kitchen. Brushing past Lily, he headed straight for the booth they had occupied earlier. From inside, a voice exclaimed, "Who the heck is this guy?" That private booth was already occupied by other local customers. You can bet they were frightened when a flushed and imposing foreigner suddenly burst in while they were just having a drink and a bite. But those customers seemed a little tipsy too and quite spirited. Hey, just because you're a foreigner doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. The foreigner was shouting back, but in German, so the locals had no clue what he was saying. What's he going on about? It was worse than a normal drunken brawl. Just as they seemed about to come to blows, Lily stepped in. Please wait, everyone just calm down a bit. With a lady stepping in between, things seemed to cool down a bit. However, the foreigner then began to interrogate Lily. He had been speaking in broken English earlier because he was calm, but now he was rapidly firing questions at Lily in accented German. Of course, Lily didn't understand what the customer was saying and looked bewildered, mumbling, well, John, who had been watching the situation from the kitchen, remarked, "This isn't good. I'll call the manager right away," and headed to the locker room. I thought I'd wait for the manager to come. Honestly, I could somewhat understand what that foreigner was saying. Though I couldn't catch every word due to the distance, if I got closer and he spoke more calmly, I'd probably understand almost everything. But if I did that, it might ruin the life I've built up to now. I've just gotten used to this job at the pub, and I've been blessed with great coworkers. I couldn't just throw that all away. Just as I was thinking this, I caught Lily's eye. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she mouthed the words, "It's okay" to me. Seeing her like that, I acted before I even thought about it. I moved toward the space between the foreigner and Lily. I stepped in and spoke to the foreigner in German. For a moment, he seemed taken aback. However, once he realized I spoke German, he relayed his concerns very quickly. Understanding what he was saying, I turned to face Lily. "Lily, did this gentleman leave anything behind in this private room when he left earlier today?" Lily looked puzzled for a moment, but then seemed to recall, "Oh, there was something." She then brought a small black box wrapped in cloth from the kitchen. It was a pretty old-looking box. Upon seeing it, the foreigner exclaimed, "Oh," and grabbed it. Upon opening the box, an antique fountain pen emerged. "That's what he was looking for," I said. Upon hearing this, Lily replied, "Oh, I see. It looks quite old, but it seems to be well maintained. I thought it might be a cherished item, so I kept it stored carefully to ensure it wouldn't get scratched." It would have been nice if she remembered it right away, but if this large man raised his voice at her, she'd probably get too nervous to remember anything. According to the foreigner, this fountain pen was handed down from his grandfather. During wartime, his grandfather, who had been injured on the battlefield, was treated by an American soldier who was his enemy. Even after the war, he kept in touch with that American soldier, who had then passed on this fountain pen to him. Since then, it has been handed down to his son and grandson and kept safely. Normally, it is kept in his bedroom at home, but he thought it would be fitting to bring it on his trip to America. He always carried it with him, but it must have fallen out of his bag at some point. He realized he had lost his fountain pen while walking with his friends after leaving this pub, so he hurriedly came back. The foreigner kept bowing and saying "thank you, I'm sorry," multiple times. While this was happening, from the kitchen, John with a brush in hand came out, and from the entrance, the manager entered the dining area holding a broom. By the time they both arrived, the situation had been resolved. A muscular man was apologizing profusely to me, and the mood was light, with some clapping and cheering probably due to a few drinks. Later that night, instead of our meal, the four of us had some snacks. Lily sat next to me and said, "Thank you so much for today. I was so scared, I thought I'd faint." She laughed but, as expected, was leading up to a question. "But how did you know German? And not just a bit, you were fluent, right?" John chimed in after those words. "Exactly. You communicated just fine." "Who the heck are you, Max?" It was the worst-case scenario I had feared. I looked to the manager for help, but he was just smirking, taking small sips of his local beer. I thought it was time to spill the beans. Actually, after graduating from MIT, I decided to pursue my graduate studies there, aiming for a research position that I could handle alone. I was planning to go to Germany this September to further enhance my skills. I did all this just to work alone, something my folks criticized, but it was crucial for my life's plan. Until September, I thought I had time, perhaps for some reading at home. That's when my parents, as I mentioned earlier, told me to get a part-time job. That's how I ended up working at this pub, being invited by the manager, my college senior. Even now, I study German in my free time and can comfortably converse in German. I plan to further focus on mastering technical terms and such. I apologized for keeping all this a secret. I was afraid that if I told John and Lily that I graduated from MIT, they wouldn't treat me the same. I had recently discovered the joy of socializing, and the thought of our bond breaking was terrifying. But that doesn't excuse the fact I was faking it. I deeply apologized for that. The two were stunned for a moment, but quickly snapped back, and John said, spitting in disbelief, "Hold on, I have so many questions, but if Max's senior is the manager, does that mean the manager went to MIT too? Wait, going to Germany in September? That's just 2 months away. Are you quitting, Max?" Lily approached me with a fiery intensity. If she had shown that spirit earlier with the foreigner, I bet she could have handled it herself, but I only thought that and kept it to myself. By the way, the manager chimed in, this guy was top of his class in college. That unnecessary comment only stirred the pot more, causing a bigger commotion among the two. "Max, sure, I was surprised to hear you graduated from MIT, but that doesn't change the fact that we've worked together this long. I'll miss you in just 2 months. I want to become closer friends." From that day on, Lily seemed to warm up to me, and I too began to trust her more. Every day, although gradually, I found myself laughing more. However, an issue arose just a week before the end of my part-time job. That day, as usual, the manager was out, and unfortunately, it was also John's day off. Luckily, the pub wasn't too busy, and Lily and I could manage just fine. During that time, a rough-looking middle-aged man walked in. Since Lily was busy delivering food, I handled the customer service. By now, I have become quite good at handling customers. When I showed him to a table, he asked me, "Is there a girl named Lily here?" I thought he was placing an order, but he was actually asking for a staff member. While I was trying to grasp what he meant, Lily came out of the kitchen with some dishes. Seeing her, the man shouted, "Lily, you, so this is where you've been hiding." Upon seeing the man's face, Lily froze in place. She had a look of sheer terror. Not the surprise and fear she had with foreigners, but pure, unadulterated fear. She was so scared she couldn't move a muscle. The man tried to forcibly grab Lily's arm and drag her outside. I immediately stepped in. "What are you doing to our employee?" My voice was strong, but it was drowned out by his shouting. "Shut up. You should mind your own business. It's a parent's right to handle their child." Parent? Is he claiming to be Lily's father? Yet, he doesn't seem to be lying. Just because you're a parent doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. What's wrong with you? My words annoyed him, and he kicked over a chair in the pub. "Who the hell do you think you're talking to?" Ignoring the other customers, he started punching the wall and throwing chairs, causing a ruckus. Screams erupted from the surrounding customers. This could lead to police involvement. Unfortunately, I'm your typical geek. I've never been in a fight my whole life. Being fluent in German doesn't help in this situation. Lily's in trouble right in front of me, and I'm helpless. Lily's father shouted at me, "What can a little punk like you do?" and took a swing. But I had no idea how to dodge, so I just closed my eyes, bracing for impact. I heard a dull thud. Yet, I felt no pain. Hesitantly, I opened my eyes and saw a wall in front of me. To be precise, it was a massive, wall-like back. I remembered. Today, in the back private room, that foreigner Eric with the fountain pen had come in with his buddies. Eric said in broken English, "Oh nice, is it my turn now?" flexing his fist. Lily's father was taken aback for a moment by the sudden appearance of the imposing man. But he quickly regained his confidence and shouted, "What's with the foreigner stepping in?" Eric then began speaking in German, his voice calm but with palpable anger. Lily's dad didn't understand a word the big foreigner in front of him was saying. To make matters worse, he soon realized he was surrounded by Eric's crew. He looked like a dwarf surrounded by giants. Eric asked me to translate. Just to clarify, I'll translate exactly what Eric is saying. I began. "I serve as a police officer in Germany. It's a dangerous job, often confronting violent criminals. I can't arrest you here in the US, but turning you over to the local authorities would probably be easier than facing some of the criminals back home. If it comes to that and you resist, be prepared to get hurt. You might need a few months to fully recover, or so," he says. Soon after, the other foreigners started sharing their professions. "I'm a boxer. I'm in the military." Each profession seemed tough. It appeared the confidence of the once bold father was shattered as he hastily and clumsily retreated. As he left, the surrounding customers showered Eric and his muscle crew with applause. Lily respectfully bowed and expressed her gratitude. She asked me to translate her feelings, but when I assured her that her gratitude was evident to Eric and the others without any translation, she let out a sigh of relief. Eric and his friends apparently traveled from Germany to the US to attend the wedding of an American friend. That friend, it seems, is also an American football player. Eric wanted to express his gratitude to Lily for carefully storing his cherished fountain pen, so he visited the pub once more before heading back to Germany. Of course, he added that he also enjoyed the food here. In particular, he loved the variety of liquor they had. He was grateful that they took care of his grandfather's cherished item, and felt relieved that he could now reciprocate the kindness. He said it now felt easier to head back to Germany. Tears streaming down her face, Lily bowed deeply as she and I bid Eric and his group goodbye. After closing up, I quickly phoned the manager to fill him in on the day's events. He listened silently throughout the conversation, but when I finished, he slowly began to speak. What the manager revealed left me quite surprised. Turns out, the manager was Lily's maternal uncle. He was 16 years younger than his sister, Lily's mother, making Lily his niece. The manager, a successful businessman, was running the pub as a hobby. Lily's parents had had an arranged marriage. Apparently, arranged marriages are still common among the elite and prominent families. Even though they were married, her father had a short temper, easily getting physical at the slightest provocation. To top it off, he apparently had an affair. This became the final straw that led to their divorce. However, he vanished without paying any alimony or child support. Growing up, Lily had witnessed her father's behavior, leading her to develop a distrust towards men. Even though she led a comfortable life with her mother after the divorce, Lily still struggled with this mistrust. Her father's side of the family went into debt after their business venture failed. This time, the reason why they tried to take Lily with them is unclear. The manager said that they might have intended to demand money from Lily's maternal grandparents using Lily, or they might have tried to make money using her. I was simply taken aback by Lily's father. I couldn't believe that not only did he physically abuse his own daughter, hitting and kicking her, but he also had the audacity to ask for money. He was worse than any lowlife Lily ever complained about. But just because such a scumbag was driven off by a foreigner once, doesn't mean he wouldn't come back a second or third time. When I expressed this concern, the manager said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it. It's my pub after all. It can't let you steal all the glory, right?" I could tell he was smirking even over the phone. Later, there was a news article about a company's CEO being arrested for tax evasion in a corner of the newspaper. The company had been struggling for a while, and there were reports of unpaid wages to employees and illegal working hours. The article said company CEO, but the man in the newspaper photo looked quite shabby. I wasn't sure if that man was Lily's father, as I honestly didn't remember his face, but since then, he never came looking for Lily. A few days before heading to Germany, I finished my last shift and was ready to go home. "Max, are you really leaving? Without you, this place won't run. It's probably on its last legs, you know." As always, John had sharp words for the manager. With tears streaming down her face, she tried to stop me. "When you come back to the States, you absolutely have to visit this place. I'll be waiting," said the ever-cheerful Lily. I replied, "Definitely," and then left the pub. Lost in thought about the whirlwind past few months, my phone buzzed with a text notification. It was a message from Lily. "Can we keep in touch?" Seeing the message, I immediately turned around and ran back to the pub, which was now out of sight. When I arrived at the pub, Lily was already standing at the entrance. "The manager said he's taking the day off, so you can head home," Lily said, looking puzzled. Through the pub's window, I could see the manager giving a thumbs up. Seeing that, I blurted out, "Lily, there's something I really want to talk about." I had been engrossed in my research in Germany. Every day was an exhilarating experience, surrounded by talented people, something I couldn't have experienced in the US. It wasn't just about being smart. I was amazed by their creativity and perspective, which was entirely different from Americans. Plus, Germans express their opinions at an incredibly fast pace. To be honest, every day I'm struggling to keep up with the conversation. I kept checking my watch. Only 5 minutes had passed since I last checked. Noticing this, a fellow researcher named Payne teased me. "Keep checking your watch like that, and your girlfriend's gonna get jealous." The group around burst into laughter. "I get to see her today after so long. I really need to go," I replied. Even as Payne and the others continued their banter, I made my way to the airport without another thought. While waiting for Lily at the airport, I found myself lost in thought. Relationships with others are indeed a mysterious thing. Reluctantly, I'd taken up a part-time job at the insistence of my parents. In just a few months, I'd gotten the hang of customer service. I'd lived a life avoiding interactions and had planned to continue doing so. Now, here I was, being teased by colleagues and waiting for my girlfriend at the airport. I wondered how Eric, who had brought Lily and me closer, was doing. Becoming his interpreter and even handling her overbearing father had solidified our bond. It's incredible how small interactions can yield such significant results. Engaging with others truly enriches life, I realized. As I was having this thought, a familiar voice called out from behind. "Hey, Max, sorry to keep you waiting." "Welcome home, Jason." "I'm back, Ashley." Having someone to exchange such greetings with when you come home is comforting. Her name is Ashley. She's the woman I live with. But we're neither lovers nor family. After all, she's just a high school girl I happened to meet. My name is Jason Roberts. Other than one aspect, I'm just your everyday white-collar worker. The one thing that sets me apart might be the fact that I have no family and am all alone in this world. My mom left our home with my younger sister when I was just a kid and never came back. My dad, without working and always drowning his sorrows in alcohol, put me in a foster home before I reached adulthood and passed away suddenly from illness. I grew up in that foster home until 18, working part-time jobs and managing to graduate from an online high school. After that, I managed to land a job at a small company right out of school. I've been working there for over 10 years now. If my much younger sister had stayed with me, I probably would have seen her become an adult by now. I wonder if she's doing okay. I often find myself thinking about my sister, wondering how she's doing. My mother was no different from my dad, always drinking and never really taking care of us. After our grandmother, who looked after us, passed away, I was the one taking care of my newborn sister. But then, she was taken away by our mother. She was the only emotional support I had in those tough times. Dad, I wonder if she's alive and well. I visit my dad's grave on the anniversary and ask him this. I thought that if he's up in heaven, he might know if my sister is with him. But there's never a response from him. Well, I guess that's to be expected. I even tried hiring a private investigator, but couldn't find out where she might be. After visiting his grave, I found myself wandering around the cemetery. That's when I saw it. A young girl was walking at a slight distance. Oh, a pastry. The girl, wearing a dirty school uniform, was hungrily devouring a pastry that had been left at someone's grave. Her cheeks were sunken, and her complexion looked poor. It didn't seem like she had been eating properly. I felt like I shouldn't be watching, so I averted my eyes. But was she one of those kids who suffered because of irresponsible parents? Thinking that, I couldn't just leave her alone. I turned my gaze back and approached her. "Are you hungry?" "Huh?" As she stuffed her face with the pastry, she jerked in surprise. Well, it makes sense. A stranger man suddenly talking to a girl her age would naturally make her wary. Given the circumstances, it's just that kind of situation. I think there's a good deal of embarrassment involved. This is... Don't worry, I'm not a creep or anything. I just want to help you out. Huh? The conversation came to a halt. The more we talked, the more awkward it seemed to get. Feeling the tension and not wanting to overthink it, I pointed at a nearby diner's sign. "How about we grab a bite there? We can talk more after." That was how I met Ashley. Coincidentally, my sister's name is also Ashley. Of course, this Ashley isn't my sister. There's a resemblance, or rather, the first time I saw her, I briefly thought of my sister, but they're different in age. I figured we'd have a meal, I'd get to know her situation, and then I'd either take her home or to some safe place, like the police or a shelter. But then again, before I knew it, we started living together. It's because she felt she had nowhere else to go. Today, I made your favorite white stew, Jason. How's the taste? Yeah, it's delicious. When I come home from work, Ashley cooks dinner for me. Seeing her eat the stew across the table, there's an elegance to her. Though she came from a loving family, Lately, they've been arguing over her career every time they see each other. Fed up, Ashley left her home. Thinking her family would report her to the police if she left without saying anything, she lied, saying she'd stay at a friend's house until things settled down. She believed that doing so would ensure her school would think her parents were handling things well. She thought she had taken all precautions. She is a genuine young lady, has never had a single part-time job, and has no idea of the harshness of the world. At first she bought food with the little pocket money she had and her savings and slept in a youth hostel, but she soon ran out of money and had to subsist on food from a soup kitchen in a park. While sketchy men tried to approach her numerous times, she firmly declined every time. She might not have much experience with the real world, but she instinctively understood that there were worse things than living on the streets. "You still don't want to go home?" "I don't want to return to that house anymore." Every day I'd ask her the same question, and her answer was always the same. In hindsight, it's strange. If Ashley was wary of the shady guys, why did she trust me? I'm also a man. Normally, you'd think she'd see me as dangerous and keep her distance. "Why did you come with me?" I had been asking Ashley, a question that had been bothering me. She paused her meal, seeming to search for the right words. "I just felt you were safe, I guess." She said that, lost in thought, and didn't elaborate further. It felt like Ashley was hiding something. That was the vibe I was getting, but I couldn't push her for answers. We sat in silence for a while until she suddenly murmured, "But I can't keep relying on you. It's not fair to you. I need to figure out what to do next." I asked her this. "But, are you okay? Can you talk to your parents properly? If someone is by my side, I might be able to sort out what I want to say." She had been looking down, but then raised her head, pleadingly looking at me. It was clear from just that look what she wanted to convey. "Got it, then let's go meet your parents together." Hearing my words, Ashley's face took on a peculiar expression that looked both relieved and somewhat lonely. "To settle this means the end of our current way of life. Ending our life together is sad, but we can't continue like this forever. Even if everything's okay for now, if her parents eventually contact the police and they find out about our situation, claiming that I, a man unrelated to her, am merely taking care of a high school girl, won't fly with the cops. Moreover, I doubt this environment, where she's not going to school and staying at home, is good for Ashley. It's best for her to settle this soon." A few days later. What should I do? They're gonna be mad, right? In front of the house's entrance, Ashley looked at me with pleading eyes. "Well, you haven't been home for days. Just go with the flow. Go on, ring the doorbell." After my prompt, Ashley hesitated a bit before pressing the bell. "Hello." Then, a woman who looked a lot like Ashley opened the door. Mom, I'm home." Ashley awkwardly greeted the woman, who embraced her tightly. "You finally came home. I'm sorry. I understand. Your father and I have stopped fighting. We decided that we should talk things out and stop arguing over trivial matters." "That's good. So you're not fighting anymore?" "No, after you left, we finally realized how much we've hurt you with our selfishness. I'm sorry, Ashley." Relief appeared on her face. Then the woman turned to me. "And you are?" I'm Jason. I've been looking after Ashley." "Looking after? Weren't you being cared for at a friend's place? You've been living with this man." Upon hearing her mother's words, Ashley awkwardly looked down. I could see why. It'd be shocking for a parent to learn that their daughter has been living with a stranger for days. I wouldn't blame them if they called the police. However, after closely examining my face, Ashley's mother said something astonishing. You're Jason, right? Jason Roberts." "Huh? How do you know my name?" "I thought so. When I got a good look at your face, I realized, I know about you. You're related to our late daughter, I've seen a childhood photo of you with her at the facility. You resembled the boy in the picture." My eyes widened in shock at her words. What does she mean by daughter? And she passed away. The first thing that came to my mind was my sister, Ashley. What happened to Ashley? Then I was led to the living room and reunited with Ashley. In the photo, Ashley looked just as young as I remember her. We adopted the girl who was placed in the foster care, but she passed away from an illness shortly after. We named our next child after her. That's the Ashley you see now. I looked over at Ashley beside me, and she quickly looked away, avoiding my gaze. "I'm sorry," she muttered in apology. "What do you mean?" I realized that you were the real brother of my deceased sister. Ashley said she recognized a young me from a photo when we first met and wasn't scared to be with me because of it. And when she actually came to our place and learned about my sister, Ashley, she wanted to talk about her real identity. But she was afraid of how I would react if she told the truth, and in the end, she couldn't say anything. It's such a coincidence to meet my sister's brother. Looking at the photo, my sister was smiling happily. She looked much healthier than when we lived together. She must have been loved and taken care of by Ashley's parents. But I never found her, and our reunion happened in the worst way possible. I sat down in front of the photo and prayed silently. "Ashley, I'd finally found you. I'm so sorry I couldn't find you earlier. And Dad, why didn't you tell me about Ashley?" Holding back tears, I muttered my greetings to Ashley in heaven and my complaints to my father. After a while, Ashley's mom gently approached me. "There's something I'd like to show you." "What is it?" "Please, follow me." She led me upstairs. It was a small child's room. We've kept this room exactly as it was when she was alive. This is where Ashley stayed. There were many stuffed animals and cute pink-themed furniture. Seeing that room, I felt how much my sister was loved by Ashley's parents. She must have been happier with them than with me. For many years, my husband and I couldn't have children. When we heard about this child's situation at the orphanage, we just felt a deep desire to make her life happy. I wonder if Ashley's mother still thinks of my sister. There was a faint trace of tears in her eyes as she gazed around the room. "I truly believe that Ashley was happy after you folks adopted her." I said those words sincerely. You could tell by looking at pictures in the room of her sister, Ashley, but even more so by observing the genuine goodness of the Ashley sitting beside. At my words, her mother nodded and stepped into the room. "There's something I'd like to give you." Saying this, she brought over a lovely pink biscuit tin from a shelf. "She wrote letters to you every day." Handing it over, I gently opened the tin. Inside were numerous letters with crayon scribbles. "To Jason, I got new parents, but you are my only big brother. I wish you could live here with me. Jason, are you okay? Ashley is fine. I miss seeing you. Jason, are you far away? I want to see you." As I read these heartfelt letters, my eyes welled up with tears. Ashley always looked forward to meeting me, didn't she? Yes. Some mysterious force brought you and the late Ashley together. Ashley's mother gave a gentle smile. Thinking that she might have gave that same smile for her departed daughter made my eyes well up once more. "Thank you for taking care of my sister, for taking care of Ashley." I bowed my head, tears streaming. "Thanks to you, my daughter came back safely. My husband will be home by evening. Would you mind meeting him?" "Yes, I'd love to greet him," I said, squinting through tear-soaked eyes and smiling. Seeing that, Ashley's mother also smiled back. After that, I met Ashley's father, and the four of us shared stories about my sister and the time Ashley stayed at our home. The time we spent together was so warm, it felt like I was with my real family. Please come visit us anytime. Do you really want someone like me? If it's Jason, you're always welcome. Her dad also said this, and since then I've met up with Ashley's family regularly. Today, Ashley brought me to visit my sister's grave. I remember the first time I met Ashley. It was at my dad's grave. I never imagined that meeting Ashley would lead me to reunite with my sister. Fate works in mysterious ways. We offered flowers and my sister's favorite cookies on the grave. You know, I've never told anyone this, but even though I never met your sister, whenever I come here, I get this indescribable feeling. I felt a strange familiarity the first time I met you too. Hearing this, a thought crossed my mind. Could it be that Ashley is the reincarnation of my sister? If that's the case, it might explain the feelings Ashley has. Well, such things probably don't happen. Ashley quietly prayed at my sister's grave, then slowly opened her eyes and turned to me. I think of you as my real brother, Jason. Can I call you Big Brother from now on? She asked with a hint of nervousness in her expression. Wanting to ease her tension, I nodded firmly. I think of you as my sister too, Ashley. Let's stick together. Okay, likewise, Big Brother. Ashley smiled with a bright, sparkling grin. That smile reminded me of the cheerful grin my late sister had, and I found myself smiling along. After graduating from college, I got a job at an electronics manufacturer, and now I'm a salesman handling big box stores and retailers that sell household appliances. Ouch, the pain's flaring up again. For the past few days, my bottom left molar had been swelling up. That day, after my second appointment, a sharp pain surged through that molar. It was an unusual pain for such a mere cavity. When I looked around, I noticed a signboard of a dental clinic. It was one of the chains, with 5 branches across Oregon. I needed to get this severe molar pain treated immediately, or I wouldn't be able to speak. Upon entering the dental clinic, a young, friendly female dentist named Jessica attended to me. She carefully examined my mouth and said, "Your wisdom tooth has developed a cavity." I visited her for about a month during my work breaks. That's how I met my wife, Jessica. Despite her limited experience, her cheerful nature and friendly smile made her a favorite dentist among children and their parents. 3 months after meeting Jessica, I proposed to her. Our relationship went smoothly, and we got married 2 years later. After a while into our marriage, Jessica's skills as a dentist improved, and she even began training new dentists and dental assistants. On the other hand, my sales performance was average, nothing exceptional. I haven't achieved any significant results, and I'm still an average salaried employee. Every day, I would sigh, comparing my vibrant and passionate wife to myself, an unremarkable salesman. One evening, while sipping coffee after dinner, a thought crossed my mind, which I verbalized. In the grand scheme of things at the company, I'm just another replaceable employee. There are many like me. Grasping my shoulder, Jessica responded with a serious look. "Bob, the company might think they can replace any employee, but for the clients, not just any salesperson will do. I understand this because of the drug reps that visit our clinic. It's the trust that makes them comfortable. For those clients, you are irreplaceable, Bob." Her words struck me like a hammer blow. It dawned on me what real value meant. That single statement from Jessica dramatically changed my perspective towards my job. As the saying goes, change the mindset, and the actions follow. My client relationships and contract numbers doubled in no time, and I clinched the top spot in sales performance. Later, I was promoted to a managerial position. It was my first raise in 8 years since joining the company. By that time, Jessica was managing one of the 7 branches of the dental clinic chain. Though we didn't have children, we respected each other's lifestyles, believing it was the ideal form for a couple. Then one day, during a lingering summer heat in September, Jessica's phone rang. It was from a hospital near her parents' home in Texas. Jessica's parents had been involved in a multi-car crash, and they were taken to the emergency room. By the time Jessica and I arrived, her father had sadly passed away. While her mother survived, she was left with a lasting injury in her leg. After her father's funeral and the memorial service, Jessica brought up something she wanted to discuss. "Bob, I'm considering taking over the family dental clinic back home." "What?" I exclaimed, taken aback. "And I want you to move with me." I had seen it coming. Her family's home was in Texas, a distance that required a flight from our current place in Oregon. Commuting was out of the question. "You want me to quit my job to be with you?" I asked, and Jessica replied with a slightly awkward look. "I'm sorry. I know you've just become a manager and things are going well at work, but since my dad passed away, I'm the only one who can take over the family's dental clinic, and being an only child, I have to look after my mom. Unlike a short-term out-of-town assignment, I'm left with only two choices: quit my job and move with Jessica, or maintain a long-distance relationship." "I get where you were coming from, Jessica, but I can't decide right now." "Okay. If I were to leave my current job, I haven't even started looking for a new job. I'm not sure if I'd even find one." Hearing that, Jessica said, "If you can't find a job you like, you can just help around the house. If you could take care of my mom during the day, it'd be a big relief. Since the clinic is private, if I work hard, I can support you and my mom." I was at a loss for words. She might be right. Even without my salary, she probably earns enough. But what about my past 8 years of hard work? "I'm sorry. I really need some time to think about it," I told Jessica and stepped outside. Becoming a stay-at-home husband. We've always shared household chores. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, I can handle them all. I'd probably manage caring for my mother-in-law too. But what would my mother-in-law think? Would she be uncomfortable with her son-in-law taking care of her day-to-day needs? That's a concern, and so is my job. I'm concerned about that, and about quitting my job where I've just been promoted. I pondered and came to a realization. I just can't do it. Depending solely on my wife's income isn't feasible for me. The next day, I spoke honestly to Jessica. She looked sad but said, "I get it. You can't just leave a job you've been dedicated to, but my decision is made. I want to continue the family dental clinic. I want to be with my mom." "I understand." And the decision was made. We'd live apart for a while. Initially, I'd use my days off to fly and visit her in her hometown. But soon, our busy lives took over, and our regular visits became infrequent. Calls and emails dwindled over time. Before we knew it, a year had passed since we started living separately, and we began to question the purpose of our marriage. And then, our bond, which was once just on paper, ended. 20 years have passed since then. At 55, I was promoted to the head of sales. Just thinking about retiring in another 5 years. When my company, hit by a recession, started laying people off. For those with positions, there was a bonus for early retirement. Maybe I could enjoy a break and look for another job during that time. I decided to opt for early retirement. Since then, I've been passing on my responsibilities to my juniors, and soon, all I had left was to use up my paid leaves. One evening, I was dining at a diner and watching the news on TV. The news showed an area affected by a landslide due to a hurricane. This hurricane was particularly bad. Houses were destroyed everywhere. At that moment, a familiar scene flashed across the TV screen. Wait a minute, I recognize that place. Oh? That's the road I took when I visited Jessica's family home a few times. Watching the news for a while, I realized the situation was dire. The whole residential area where Jessica lived with her mother-in-law was buried under a landslide. What on earth? This is bad. I rushed out of the shop and tried calling Jessica, but couldn't get through. The next morning, I headed to her family home. The area where Jessica's family home and the dental clinic stood was unrecognizable, buried beneath the mud and debris. From the local police, I learned that around 10 people had already been rescued and sent to the hospital. However, there were still over 10 victims buried alive. It seemed impossible at the disaster site to confirm the names of those who had been rescued. Believing that Jessica was among those saved, I headed to the hospital. At the hospital reception, I inquired about Jessica and her mother-in-law's names. What? This is her mother's name, isn't it? This can't be. I found out that Jessica's mother didn't make it. Jessica had been moved to the ICU. Apparently, she had a head injury. I waited in the hospital's lounge for hours on end. As the night approached, her condition deteriorated. Soon after, Jessica was rushed into surgery. Even during college exams or job interviews, I never really prayed. But now, that's all I could do. God, please, save Jessica. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. The last time Jessica and I spoke was about a month ago. Even after our breakup, we kept in touch a few times a year, updating each other over calls and emails. Since neither of us had any hard feelings, it was easy to communicate. Hello, it's me. Oh, you sound down. What's wrong? Well, we got some fresh graduates at work, and they just casually email us whenever they're late or absent. It's really frustrating. She would listen to my complaints. She would comfort me by saying, "Modern kids can be so thoughtless these days." Looking back, I thought about relocating near Jessica's house and searching for a new job after taking early retirement. After our divorce, I was too busy with work, didn't date anyone, and never really felt attracted to anyone. I heard the situation was the same for her. 4 hours later, the light outside the surgery room went off, and the surgeon came out. Jessica had suffered internal bleeding in her brain from the impact. A clot had formed, blocking one of her brain vessels. She was alive, but there would be permanent damage to her right side. It's impossible for a dentist to continue treating patients with such an impairment. She can't continue her dental practice. Thinking about how Jessica must have felt, it breaks my heart. The next morning, Jessica woke up, her eyes widening in surprise when she saw me. "Bob," she whispered in a frail voice. "Oh, I just saw it on the TV news and rushed over. Is your head hurting? It seems the anesthesia is still working, so it doesn't hurt that much," she replied in a feeble voice. Afterward, the two of us listened to the doctor in charge. That her mother passed away at the disaster site. Jessica will have lasting effects on her right side. Her right hand is paralyzed and won't move as it used to. It was said that she'd likely need a cane to walk due to the residual effects on her right leg. Lying in bed, Jessica silently shed tears. I couldn't find the words to comfort her and just kept gently stroking her back. In about a week, Jessica was able to communicate normally. "Bob, what about your job? Have you been off this whole time?" I explained to her about my early retirement and that I was using up my paid leave, so I didn't need to go back to work. Then, I asked her, "Jessica, what do you want to do when you're discharged?" "I'm actually torn," she replied. "First, I want to lay Mom to rest beside Dad, but after that, our house and dental clinic are both gone. I don't know what to do." She probably realized that returning to work as a dentist might be out of the question. I mustered my courage and told her, "With my current situation, if you want to stay in this town, I can move here and support you, but if you want to leave, you can come with me." Hearing that, Jessica slowly shook her head. "I can't. I don't want to be a burden to you." you'd never be a burden. 20 years ago, I chose my job over you and let you return to your family's home alone. I've always wondered if that decision was a mistake." Hearing this, Jessica looked at me with wide eyes. After a moment of silence, she said, "Bob, when I'm discharged, can I come back with you?" She looked a bit sad, saying that her cherished hometown had now become a place of painful memories. "I understand. Let's go back together." Saying that, I gently patted Jessica's back. 2 months later, we're now working as live-in managers for an apartment complex. Every morning, while cleaning the entrance, we greet the residents. "Have a good day." "Will do." Jessica is currently practicing typing on a computer using her left hand. She wants to create notices to post on the apartment's bulletin board. I'm always amazed at her persistence, no matter the years gone by. I thought I'd be the one supporting her, but I find myself drawing inspiration from her more often than not. Since living with Jessica, I've taken up cooking as a hobby. I still need her taste tests and advice, but I aspire to surprise her with a delicious meal one day, experimenting with different dishes daily. It's amazing what you can accomplish at any age, in any situation. I firmly believe that, moving forward, we'll continue to support and grow with each other.